All right, welcome to today's video. Now today is a pretty important day for me because today is the first day that we're trying out the Adios Pro 3. I picked these up. These are the first super shoe that I've ever had on my feet. So we're gonna take them for a run here. I've got an interval session to do. I'm actually on week 6, day 2 of marathon prep. A little bit of ice, a little bit of snow, but a little bit of bare pavement too. So hopefully this works out well. Now, a couple of things I want to say right off the bat is that I have watched lots of reviews on these, and I do know that some folks have issues with the upper, and I do know that some folks don't consider these to be the fastest shoe, and I do know that a lot of people say that the outsole is great on these shoes, and on and on and on. So I'm trying not to let some of that influence how this shoe feels to me, but you never know. I'm gonna give you my first impressions after I get just a few kilometers in this shoe. All right, let's go. Hi everybody, welcome to today's video. My name is Matt and this is What Matters to Matt. And yes, like I said in the beginning of this video, today we are talking about my first impressions of the Adidas Adios Pro 3. All right, so right off the bat, I think it's important to talk about exactly who I am as a runner before we get into this shoe. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I know this is a really early sell, but if you're liking this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button and hitting that bell notification so you get notified every time I put out a new video. But me as a runner, what you're gonna find if you look through some of my videos is that I'm not particularly fast. I'm definitely just your average runner. I found running a little bit over 2 years ago. I've progressively got a little bit quicker. And in fact, last year, when I ran my first ever marathon, I ran that in the endorphin speeds. And one of my more popular videos back at the time was when I bought this shoe and I asked the question, was it even worth me actually putting on something with some sort of a plate? I know, nylon, not carbon, but with some sort of a plate, would that actually make me faster? Turns out, I think it did, but I've only run that one marathon that fast. But to give you an idea of what some of my paces are, when I took this shoe out, the Adios Pro 3, out for the initial run the other day, I actually ended up with 2 PBs according to Garmin. One was a 5K PB of 22 minutes and 3 seconds, and one was a 10K PB of 44 minutes and 50 seconds, which quite frankly, I was really impressed with given the conditions, given that we had some ice, given that we had some snow, given that those were intervals and there were 60-second break easy jogs in between in a couple of those, and I still managed to hit those PBs. So initially, can I say that this shoe made me faster? Yes, but my bigger argument for buying a shoe like this, like the Adios Pro 3, like something that has these energy rods in the bottom of it, something with more of a carbon plate, a marathon race day shoe, we'll get into in a second. I think, quite frankly, one of the biggest reasons why I hit a couple of PBs just in a training run first time putting on these shoes was just how excited I was to be in them and how much I wanted them to make me faster. All right, so to jump into some of the specs of this shoe, now I have a men's US size 12.5, and that comes in at 279 grams or 9.84 ounces. The drop on this shoe is 6.5 millimeters. That's 39.5 millimeters in the heel and 33 millimeters in the forefoot. The midsole is made up of Adidas Light Strike Pro. The upper is Adidas Cellular Mesh 3.0. And what they're using instead of carbon plate in this shoe is Energy Rods 2.0, which you'll see through the bottom of the shoe in the little cutout in the midsole. All right, now we get to dive into probably the reason why you clicked on this video, and it is to talk about what my first impressions were of the upper, the midsole and the outsole of this shoe. Now, I do want to reiterate what I mentioned at the beginning of this video was that I have been influenced slightly by what other reviewers have said. That's not influencing what my actual impressions of the shoe are, but in a way, because again, I don't have a whole lot of extra money to throw at shoes, I need to kind of do a little bit of research before actually buying a shoe. And when I did that with this shoe, there were a couple of things that I was kind of watching out for that may have skewed my focus a little bit when I was actually out there on my initial run and the second run that I did in this shoe. But let's start off by talking about that upper. Now, the upper of the shoe is probably where I heard the most complaints from other reviewers. One thing that they did mention is that seller mesh is really quite rough. It is very breathable, but it's not very stretchy. It's not very forgiving. And if it doesn't fit your foot properly, it's really not going to do you any good. You're going to have those hot spots. It's not something that's sort of like a knitted material like we'd find on the New Balance SC Elite 3. But it also, the lacing system on this is a little bit different. And I do find that in order to get the proper lockdown, you do have to start at the bottom and work your way up. And it is kind of cumbersome, and to make sure that the tongue is actually lying properly on your foot in the shoe is kind of cumbersome. But I will say, when I actually got out on that first run, I was really worried about getting a proper lockdown, so I locked this down really, really tight, used the heel lock like I do in every other shoe, but I end up with a little bit of lace bite here on the top of my foot because I was concerned about not having any heel lift in the back of this shoe. So the second time that I went out with this shoe on that second run, I didn't try to lock it down quite so tight, and I found that it was perfectly fine. I was just maybe a little bit over concerned because of some of the things I had heard about people having some difficulty with lockdown. So overall, once I took the time to actually dial in the lockdown, and something I would suggest if you ended up buying this shoe, I think you have to get used to every time that you're going out to do a hard effort, and certainly on the day of the marathon, you probably want to give yourself a few minutes doing a couple of strides just to confirm to yourself that you've got the proper lockdown in this shoe, so you're not having to worry about it when you're actually out on the run. But when I did get that proper lockdown, shoe worked perfectly fine for me. There is actually, even though there's not a lot back here in the heel counter, there is actually a decent, I use the word decent in a lot of my reviews, but there is some padding back here in the heel that I think really, really helped me with that lockdown. And then there is this famous little pull tab thing that most people have complained about. I'm not really complaining about it. It's just, it's a little bit useless for me. I don't find any convenience with it, but it doesn't bother me either. How much weight is there actually in this if it wasn't there? So let's move on to talking about the midsole of the shoe and what my first impressions of it were. All right, so the midsole of this shoe is where all the magic happens, and Adidas is using the Light Strike Pro midsole foam in this. Now, I did find, and again, maybe influenced by a couple other reviews out there, but I did find this shoe between the energy rods and that Light Strike Pro to be a little bit stiff that first time out. And when I was running at faster paces for me, my 5K pace, my 10K pace, it was fine. I enjoyed it on those runs. But when I actually tried to slow down to my marathon pace, that was where I got a little bit concerned that it was feeling a little bit too stiff and a little bit too firm. But when I took it out on my second run, I could already tell that this midsole had started to soften up a little bit, and that those energy rods actually did start to become just a little bit more flexible, almost to the point of being exactly where I wanted it in this shoe. One of the things that I heard from a lot of people is that it wasn't a shoe that's meant to go that fast. Fast at the marathon distance, fast at those sort of paces, but not your 5K, 10K race day shoe. And that's exactly what I was looking for, was something that I could sort of set it and forget it, get on cruise control, and just run those marathon paces and just lock in and go and not have to worry about it. Because as somebody who's quite frankly a newer marathon runner, I haven't gotten that much experience in the marathon. Pacing, making sure that I can just lock into a comfortable pace and not have to worry about it becomes even more important for me, because I'm not looking to race anybody and jump out ahead of anybody. I just wanted to lock into a pace and forget about it. So I was very impressed with this on that second run that I did actually just yesterday. It did soften up a little bit, and it seems to be at sort of the perfect point for me. So I'm gonna get one more long run in this shoe with quite a bit of marathon pace in it to make sure that it's exactly what I want on race day. But right now, that midsole, that Light Strike Pro, and those energy rods seem to be doing the trick for me, locking into my marathon pace. Lastly, let's talk just for a second about the outsole of this shoe. Now, what was kind of weird and crazy for me was that when I flipped this over, and I had seen this again in a number of different reviews, was just there's no tread pattern, nothing on the bottom of the shoe, just these little cutouts in the rubber, and it's a fairly thin rubber, and that really had me concerned. But if you saw at the beginning of this video, the conditions that I was in, I was really, really surprised with the grip. Is it great on snow and ice? No, absolutely not. But quite frankly, a lot of racing running shoes are not really good on the ice, regardless of what the outsole is on those shoes. There's none of them that are really good. But I found this to be incredibly grippy on the wet road, and it wasn't actually even that bad on the snow and ice, but it gave me full confidence when I was on that wet road. And between that outsole being as grippy as it seemed to be, and just the general firmness of the shoe not being too squishy, I had no concerns about taking corners or being able to keep that stability when I was running in some of those iffy conditions. So regardless of what shows up on race day, I'm really, really excited about this outsole. And of course, that Continental rubber they have up here in the toe gave me really, really good push off and really good grip when I was pushing those paces just a little bit faster. Okay, so I know that wasn't really, really long and not a whole lot of extra information that you probably didn't hear before on this shoe, but I really wanted to get my first impressions out on this because I am really, really excited about this. And to answer your question once again on whether I think a fast shoe, a carbon plated shoe or a carbon rod shoe is actually going to help me run a little bit faster in the marathon, I'm gonna say yes. But the reason why is not so much just about the energy return and the amount of energy I'm gonna get from that foam and the amount of energy I'm gonna get from the foam in combination with those energy rods. It's about the ability for those energy rods to stiffen up some of that midsole, give me all that foam, give me the protection that I need for my legs deep into that marathon so that I'm able to push through at the paces I want to at the end of that race. That's the theory. That's what I hope will happen. I guess if you want to find out whether it will, you're gonna have to stick around for my marathon that I have coming up in May. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, share this video with your running buddies. My name is Matt, and this is What Matters to Matt. And ultimately, what matters to me most is my family. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.